Hi, Irakli. Thanks for coming to the show. Maybe for a first intro, you can introduce yourself to our audience and what you're exactly doing at UNICRI. You're the head of the Center for Artificial Intelligence and Robotics at the United Nations.
Thank you so much, Yves. It's wonderful to be at your show and share my experience and thoughts with your audience. As you said, yes, I'm head of the Center for Artificial Intelligence and Robotics at the UNICRI, which is the United Nations agency. The center itself is one of the earlier UN initiatives in the field of artificial intelligence, emerging technologies, and innovation. Starting from 2014, we started experimenting how United Nations, how UNICRI can actually respond to the exponential growing issues related to artificial intelligence or new technologies, and to see what are the risks, benefits, and how we can actually maximize mostly on the beneficial side, but also to minimize the risk associated with this powerful technology like artificial intelligence. Since 2017, we did establish the center here in The Hague in the Netherlands with support of the government of the Netherlands and UNICRI, obviously, and other supporters and stakeholders and donors. And we are undertaking numerous activities in this field, mostly focused on issues related to crime prevention, criminal justice, rule of law, human rights associated with artificial intelligence and associated technologies around it.
Yeah, that's a whole lot. What I'm always thinking when you say we're the United Nations and we're working across boundaries, and I'm thinking about the law, because law is very different across countries. So how do you manage that part, or look at the artificial intelligence and the difference in law?
Look, artificial intelligence is an extremely powerful technology, which is growing exponentially year after year, which was not possible as far as the technology is concerned 3-4 years ago. It is very much possible now. And some things which we think that may not be possible in the future will be possible definitely in there as well. Therefore, technology itself is growing very rapidly. And if you take the law, international law regulations, it's always sort of playing a catch-up game with that. That's why right now, everybody's concerned about the governance of artificial intelligence or related technology, how we make sure that we get benefits out of it, but also diminish the risk. And that's why the issues related to governance of AI, as we call it, is at the forefront. We do have numerous initiatives in the governance side. We have for example, legislative act, which was proposed by European Commission. We have numerous other initiatives. We have countries who are adopting their own national strategies in some sort of forms of regulations, but obviously we don't have any kind of international charter, convention, or an agreement on sort of a larger governance of it, which is very difficult, and we can discuss it a little bit later as well. It's a new field still. It's sort of from the historical point of view, we are just sort of getting the tips of the iceberg what will be coming in the future.
So it's not purely for the governance right now, but just trying to help the nations understand what you can do with the robotics and artificial intelligence, and how that can improve, in fact, our life and the environment and everything like that, if I understand what you say.
Sure. I mean, you see, at the United Nations, we have numerous initiatives. For example, Secretary General has a roadmap for the digital cooperation where artificial intelligence can be discussed heavily there. We have processes like the Artificial Intelligence AI for Good summits every year, as a whole United Nations under the auspices of ITU is organizing specialized sequence of events, how AI can contribute to the fulfillment of the UN Sustainable Development Goals. We have numerous other initiatives, like from our center side, we're looking at the governance of how AI is and can be used in the law enforcement, which is one of the probably most sensitive part of the use case of the AI. And we're looking at to ensure that police across the globe will use this technology to solve crime-related problems, but will do so in a human rights compliant manner, will do so ethically, will do so responsibly, and will do so in such a way that it will not erode human rights. It will not exacerbate discrimination or widen the gaps which are existing sort of more on the global level.
Yeah, that's interesting to hear that you say UNICRI is kind of moderating how that can come to be. So if you're talking about crime prevention with artificial intelligence and law enforcement, do you have some examples of how they use artificial intelligence? I know we're also afraid of all the cameras that keep on watching you all the time and see every move you're making. And I'm always very hopeful that that will help in crime prevention. I mean, you see that on TV, like CSI, they in just a GIF, they kind of find the offenders in there. But is it already that good and promising with artificial intelligence?
I mean, it's like a double sort of end sword, as you would want to say it. On the one hand, the technology is very powerful, obviously, and it can solve problems. And how does it do it? I mean, basically, what AI is that it's a combination of enormous amount of data, computational power, very powerful one, and the algorithms which are existing to it, so that you interpret that enormous amount of data and you make sense out of it, and you will actually find solutions where single human being or combination of human beings won't be able to do it. Like if you take a data, right now, as a human beings, we have accumulated around 45 zettabyte of data, while in 2010, we had only 1 zettabyte of data. For you to understand what 45 zettabyte of data is, it's like if you take every single word spoken by every single human being on this planet and record it, so that's as much. And by 2025, it is projected that we will have 175 zettabyte of data accumulated. So what it means is that we will all be very heavily dependent on the tools, on the machines, on the systems, on the applications to interpret that for us. And it will be the same thing for the law enforcement. Now, law enforcement across the globe is using certain type of artificial intelligence tools already. And together with Interpol, we have a specialized forum, which is called AI for Law Enforcement, where we do examine and share practices, how this technology is being used. I mean, if you want to see a use case, for example, in Australia, they use artificial intelligence for the road trafficking violations. And if you are driving a car and you are using your smartphone to text someone while you're driving, camera might detect it and automatically send you the fine, which is actually a quite a legitimate sort of a use case. At the same time, there has been numerous criticisms to the practices like predictive policing, for example, where a lot of data have been sort of compromised, and we've seen the results which were not as optimal or as desirable as possible. And those are the practices where we are trying to sort of have a greater debate on the human rights side. For example, if you take face recognition technology, this is a whole different world where we have numerous debates, and we're working with other organizations to ensure that that technology is only used responsibly in a human rights compliant manner.
Yeah. Fully understand. And I think that's you put it in a different way, where you say it's about the human rights and not purely about the ethical ways of using the technology as such. How do you see that crime over the time has changed thanks to technology and artificial intelligence?
Crime itself is changing over the time, obviously. I mean,
well, crime prevention, sorry, but not purely crime. We see they become smarter. Yeah.
Crime and crime prevention, both sides are becoming becoming smarter. For example, 25 years ago, almost nobody was using internet, so most of the crime was committed offline, digitally. Right now, everybody's using internet, everybody's using smartphones, everybody's using very sophisticated technologies. We see kind of 3 levels of threats as far as the crime is concerned. Number one is the digital threats associated with artificial intelligence. Basically, all the digital crimes, all the cyber crimes in the future will be supported with some kind of autonomous applications, some kind of AI systems. While traditionally, you still have only human sort of resources used to it, human hackers who are penetrating the systems. While in the future, and we already see this kind of occurrences now, it will be autonomous systems who will be doing that particular job, and the threat is being amplified. Number two is physical threats associated with artificial intelligence versus crime, while you have a combination of AI systems and common robotics. For example, you take a robot or you take a drone and you will install AI applications like face recognition on a drone and give a task to commit certain type of crime, which amplifies the situation enormously, while the threat would not exist some years ago. And the same thing, what we call it political threats, where you could say manipulated news, which can derail political processes, elections, and undermine democracy as such, when you can have very accurate manipulated deepfake video of anyone you want to right now, if you put enough resources to it, and you can actually orchestrate quite a damaging situation. All of this, we actually put it in our recent report. Last year, we issued a report together with Europol and Trend Micro, and it is available on our website for the viewers to see it. It's a large 70 to 80 page report where we describe quite sort of in details how all of these are used and will be used in the future.
Yeah, you mentioned crime and crime prevention. Well, we all know that unfortunately the crime scene has more budget than the people trying to prevent crime. Do you think that technology can help in that respect? Just beating that the speed that crime is well, the crime organizations are taking compared to how we can catch up, and we have on top of that even the ethical and the legislation challenges which are on our end, if I can call it like that.
Yeah, I understand your question. I mean, number one is that I'm not so sure how much sort of criminal organizations are funded with, but I'm not saying that there is such a huge sort of disbalance there. I think that law enforcement agencies are also very well realizing how much technology is needed. That's why we have numerous platforms, like I've mentioned, AI for law enforcement, and I see that many law enforcement agencies are investing quite heavily in technology, in understanding technology, and in application of the technology. Now, as far as the human rights part and responsible part, I think that we should not we should not downsize the importance of that in order to solve crime, because if we allow solving crime without or compromising on the human rights, we will actually create a completely different type of effect. We will create a distrust of society, distrust of public towards technology, and we will receive a kind of a reverse effect to it. Instead of public trusting the technology, public would not want to have the technology being involved in that, and we will have a completely reverse effect. Therefore, I believe that technology should be used to solve crime, but it should be done in a right way. It should be done in a responsible way, in a human rights compliant way, and that's why some of the work what we do is extremely important. For example, we are now developing a specialized toolkit, what we call it. It's a guidebook together with Interpol and European Commission, which funds the project, and Interpol and UNICRI is implementing it, to make something very practical for the law enforcement to ensure that they use this technology in the right way.
Oh yeah, so you say you have a toolkit that helps them understand how they need to use it and where they need to look at, like you say, ethical parts and all these aspects.
Sure, and how to ensure it that the technology like AI, which is a very powerful one, is used to solve problems. But at the same time, it is done in such a way that it's not crossing the lines of the human rights and nobody's suffering along the way.
Yeah, that's a very noble initiative. You're also a member of some other organizations that closely related to UNICRI and focusing on technology and artificial intelligence. How does that align with what UNICRI is doing?
Yes, we are actually sort of plugged in numerous initiatives globally as UNICRI, as the Center for AI and Robotics. participate in many different activities. We have very close partnership, as I mentioned, with Interpol, with Europol, with United Nations Office of Counterterrorism, with World Economic Forum, for example, with whom we have individual projects happening. For example, with World Economic Forum, we are running a specialized project on the responsible limits of the face recognition technology. We issued a white paper recently, and right now we are testing the findings of the white paper with concrete law enforcement organizations across the globe. We have 5 law enforcement organizations which are right now testing these approaches. At the same time, we work on the issues also of counterterrorism, and we partnered with the UN Office of Counterterrorism. We issued 2 large reports together with them, and the third one, particularly on the human rights, will be coming up pretty soon. At the same time, we are contributing to the larger UN efforts on the governance side, and we're supporting the UN Office on the Digital Cooperation, or UN movement on the digital cooperation, and numerous other initiatives as well. Because you cannot, in this field, you cannot operate in a silo. Obviously, you have to be part of the global initiative so that everybody benefits out of it. But on the crime side, on the crime prevention and criminal justice side, we are leading some of the processes.
Yeah, but that's great to hear. I mean, you say you have a white paper, and it's great to hear that it's implemented or tested out in the real life and doesn't stick only with a vision and an approach as such. Talking about emerging technology, you say we're evolving at a very high pace right now. How, if we can put a time on that, how do you see that evolving in the next 5 years? What can we expect with artificial intelligence, robotics? Will crime be completely out of the picture? What is your feeling? I mean, it's not purely a prediction, but where do you see that we are going with this artificial intelligence and robotics?
So on the artificial intelligence side and robotics or related technologies like blockchain, for example, or the issues of what we call sort of virtual worlds, metaverse, these are going to be growing exponentially. And these are being growing exponentially historically, and this process is not going to stop. Therefore, we need to be on the par or step ahead of these technologies to ensure that those will not be used by criminals, and at the same time we will draw all the benefits which are possible from the technology like AI. What I see in the 3-5 year time frame, artificial intelligence will be used by criminals and will also be used by law enforcement, and we already see the cases of AI being used by criminals for singular cases, whether it's on the digital threats or digital crimes, or more on the sort of defrauding or fraud-related crimes where voice recognition technology has been used or fake voice has been generated to commit that type of crimes. Law enforcement will be heavily, as I said, be dependent on the artificial intelligence type of applications and tools, because simply we are, and law enforcement will be collecting enormous amount of data, and if you don't interpret that data with support of something, you won't be able to make sense of it. We will have many different streams where we will be depending, whether it will be a natural language processing, which is a big part of the AI applications, very important for the law enforcement, or audio visual processing, or some other techniques and tools where we'll have a heavy investments from the government or law enforcement sides as well. So as I said, in 3-5 years time, we will have a greater penetration of this technology in the government structures, especially in the law enforcement, and we will also have an accelerated efforts by criminal organizations, organized crime, to also use this technology for their goals.
Yeah, that's clear. It's about the technology, how that gets embedded into organizations. But at the same time, I'm thinking that well, law enforcement teams need different people on their team to handle the technology, to interpret the data. And we all know there is a big shortage on these type of profiles. Is that something where UNICRI supports in creating trainings or, well, help these organizations to get the skills on board?
Absolutely. For example, one of the flagship projects which we are implementing is together with the Ministry of Interior of United Arab Emirates, and we are running a specialized, larger global project which is called AI for Safer Children. Within that project, we created a global hub with access to 193 UN member states law enforcement, where on the hub, we have availability of the AI tools to combat sexual exploitation and abuse of children online. And the hub has a specialized learning center where we are actually guiding and providing online training now. And in the future, it will turn into a physical training of all law enforcement agencies in the world to see how to use AI tools to combat this particular crime, which is a very growing crime area, especially during the COVID and aftermath of the COVID. And there are numerous hundreds of thousands or millions cases of sexual exploitation and abuse of children online, where AI can play a tremendous and significant role.
Yeah, so the future really looks bright, if we can put it like that. But it's very nice that you say we're bringing the technology to the people and learn how to use that to a specific use case and prevent crime as such. Yeah, very interesting, Irakli. I think we came up to the end of our show. So a thing where I see that people are very well connected is as well, not purely on data, but it's about music as well. So do you have a favorite band or a favorite song that keeps you going and inspires you?
You know, this is the kind of question which I always try to avoid, but why? Because I do like wide variety of music, and I do listen many type of bands or many type of genres, as you'd like to say, from the pop to jazz, from rock to I don't know, all the classical music, including. I have a very sort of a very, depending on the mood, I would listen to any kind of good quality music. And to me, what really does matter is the company I'm with, people I'm sharing this music with, where I would enjoy it as well.
Yeah, thanks very much for that insight. Irakli, it was so nice to have you on the show and share all your knowledge and experience with the UNICRI. So let's say to the people, really go for the technology and hope for a better future.
Yes, from my side, I would say that yes, let's go for the technology. Let's try to see how technology solves problems, but let's do it responsibly. Let's do it in a right way, and let's do it in a human rights compliant way as well.